So let's turn to the big story of the week, really, which of course is the World Cup. There's been a lot of controversy. There's been a lot of virtue signalling swirling around this particular World Cup finals. Also, this week it does feel like the football's also taken over, which has been great. A great result for England on Monday, as well as some upsets along the way, which have provided a nice reprieve from a lot of the political discussion. But look, it was striking just how much politics was swirling around this particular World Cup. Obviously, the decision to hold it in Qatar under slightly questionable circumstances, evergreen allegations of corruption against FIFA. But particularly, let's start with the England team. There was obviously so much discussion about whether or not they were going to make a stand for their values. They ended up taking the knee, as they have done a lot in recent years. But in the end, they opted not to wear their pro-LGBT armbands before they were in the Iran game, because they were threatened with a yellow card and so on. So has the kind of virtue signalling of Southgate's England just collided with the sort of reality? Or what have you made of all this?
Well, I think that's exactly what's happened, isn't it? It's that the reality of being a sportsman has come up against being a woke totem. And that's, I think what this World Cup is showing us is that you should not go to footballers, perhaps English footballers, for your moral leadership, because you can't expect them to be consistent. I almost feel sorry for English footballers sometimes, because they are fundamentally commercial entities, and they will do things and make decisions based on their commercial interests. And being enmeshed in the woke world is very important to one's personal brand nowadays. But there comes a point where you think, well, sorry, Harry Kane, if wearing your armband leads to a yellow card and that is sufficient for you to basically drop all commitment to your cause, then perhaps you're not the moral force that we thought you were. And neither should you have to be. I mean, I really do think people should stop trying to use these people as vehicles for their own values, because that's what fundamentally is going on here. When footballers engage in these activities, you have to remember that there is effectively an industry behind them guiding towards doing it. I don't think it genuinely comes from them themselves. And I think there's a reason why that's really sad. It's because we lose sight of how iconic these young men are. This England football team is a great team. It's doing a fantastic job on the pitch. It's getting us further in tournaments than we have been getting for a very long period of time. Young men like Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford, these are great, iconic football players. And they embody a lot of the values that we should be celebrating: determination, resilience, heroism, national pride. These people are good enough without having to funnel artificial woke values through them. Because if you carry on doing that, they will be inconsistent. The other example was David Beckham, of course, who was at one point a gay icon and has now literally become the spokesperson for a part of the world that's openly homophobic. And, you have Joe Lycett pretending to shred money and then shredding his copy of Attitude with David Beckham on the front. And you do think, what did you expect? If you're taking moral leadership from Premier League footballers, who in many ways are literally embodiments of contemporary capitalism, you are not going to get moral leadership and consistency. I'm sorry.
And as you say, it was a role thrust on them, but at the same time, they were quite willing participants. I think it's fair to say. What is it, Inaya, that makes you think that these people who, the reason that we all idolise them is because they're great at football, still feeling the need to engage in this kind of politics, seeing it as a kind of moral mission, if you like? How did we end up in that particular position?
I mean, there's clearly, as Luke mentioned, pressure from certain organisations and activist groups for these individuals to do that. But I think it also just drains the genuine radicalism out of some forms of activism when it's just this kind of top-down measure that is really enforced, rather than, for example, the Iranian men who seemingly quite spontaneously and with genuine risk to themselves back in their home country and so on, did not sing the national anthem and did those kinds of things that were incredibly powerful, and wasn't this often technocratic, bureaucratic, top-down measure to really be seen to be good to the right people. And so I think in that sense, that really differentiates what it really means to take a stand versus what we are seeing today. But you also have to wonder, though, as well, a country like Qatar, why they would want to open themselves up as a country where so many people across the world are going to go there and with all of the different values and ideas and try and regulate people in all these myriads of ways that they have done. I do think it is also strange in that sense, why they've wanted to do that. But of course, there's all of those arguments about corruption and so on. But yeah, I think this debate has been going on for quite a few years about football and politics. And I think it just goes back again to in 2020. I mean, this has been really a culture war. And rather than actually politics infused in football, people should just enjoy the game.
We should, but the first was two last things about the Woke World Cup. I want to carry on. So I've got a question for each of you. Luke, did you see the Gianni Infantino speech? This is the president of FIFA. We should probably play a bit of it.
Today I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arab. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
So pretty stunning comments there from Gianni Infantino, launching into this very weird diatribe that lasted like an hour, apparently, over the weekend. What did you make of that? Because if it was an attempt at woke washing, it didn't work because everyone was mocking it as soon as it came out of his mouth. But why did he decide to do this, do you think?
I mean, I really don't know. It was a truly extraordinary spectacle. I mean, I think there is sometimes when people are put in the position of having to appear woke, they can say some very strange things because they genuinely don't understand what they're meant to say. And I think there's a lot of that going on. I mean, football has never been the ideal fit for woke politics for all sorts of reasons. And I think now when you have organisations like FIFA attempting to gloss over the real issues with corruption, holding the competition in somewhere like Qatar with these bizarre monologues, you really see how attempting to crowbar politics into this kind of institution will not work and probably end up looking stupid.
I did like the bit where he suggested that Europe could learn from Qatar because they've opened their doors to migrants.
Yeah,
it's quite an amazing bit.
Oh, God.
But, just to close out, and I'm not sure if you've seen this because it was from early today or from the day that we're recording this, but a bunch of England fans, first of all, they were told by Kick It Out, the anti-racism organisation, that they shouldn't go dressed as St George because they would appear as crusaders and this would be potentially insensitive. But also we've since seen fans actually being turned away from the stadiums in Qatar by security, presumably for the same reason. So what do you make of this kind of alignment of sort of anti-racist activism in the UK and sort of Islamic monarchs in the other case? What's this alignment about here, do you think?
I mean, it's just so patronising. I mean, even when you're just talking about the monologue there, you know, naming all of these supposed victim groups and presenting, you know, yourself as one of them, just because you've had a bit of backlash. But, you know, in this instance, we are seeing once again something that has been repeated over several years, the way that the identity victim hierarchy often creates quite strange alliances. It's so stupid. It's so frustrating. It's so bizarre. And I think that I just feel very bad for the fans who get caught up in this pathetic politics on the part of these identitarians.